right, so now we're gonna jump into politics, like in earnest. And the first thing is that is it Monday? No, yeah, this past Monday, the Republicans did it. They confirmed Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court. She is now the ninth.
And what happened the next day?
No, what happened?
Mitch McConnell said, "Oh, now we can go on vacation."
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Trash.
So yeah. So they confirmed her. The Supreme Court has 9 justices once again. Like Zeus said, the Republicans are now in recess, and we still don't have a stimulus plan to help people that are struggling from this pandemic. They didn't want to do that, but they sure did want to push forth a justice. There was a court case out of Pennsylvania regarding early voting and receiving ballots that come in after election day, even though they've been postmarked by election day. That would have been the first case that Barrett would adjudicate, but she recused herself because I think it was already an ongoing case before she got confirmed. So people are like, "Oh, look, she's going to be recusing herself from stuff." No, she's setting up. Yeah, I believe, right, in conspiracy theory, whatever. She's setting up for that big one when if this election is close enough and it needs to be contested. She's not going to recuse herself from that one.
No,
she's going to sit in, and it's hard to believe that she'll be impartial. But I'm hoping to God that she is impartial.
I pray to God that I don't think she will be. Neither will what's his name, Whiny McWeinstein, the one that was crying all over it when he was getting confirmed.
Kavanaugh.
Yeah, him. And then wasn't there a third one, Greenwald? No, Greenwald was the one that was gonna get confirmed by Obama, but they didn't let that one go through.
No, Garland.
Garland, thank you.
Mary Garland. But the third Trump justice, well, really the first that he put through was Neil Gorsuch.
Thank you. So I'm praying to God that the other two, because I think the other 2 conservative justices are still old school Republicans, where when it comes that it's country first, not party. The problem is because even the ones that Obama,
I disagree. You said the other conservative justices. I think
really it's only
maybe
one.
Roberts. Yeah,
that's what I was gonna say.
Because,
really, it's only him because Clarence Thomas is trash.
Yes, so, Thomas and Alito, they've made it clear that if gay marriage is to come back on the ballots, they're probably going to strike.
No, I'm not talking about that. That definitely is a dangerous subject that we can definitely talk about. I'm talking about if the election is contested next week.
Oh, gotcha.
That's what I'm talking about. I would, but then again, they also gave Bush the nomination, so it might not be the case.
I don't trust Thomas at all. Alito, I'm not so sure, but Thomas, don't trust him at all.
But hopefully with Roberts and Alito, that's enough because that would be what 4 to 5 if they jumped. Yeah, that would be 4 to 5.
Yeah, Sotomayor,
if Alito and Roberts actually go bipartisan and sided with the other 3, which is Sotomayor. I forget.
Sotomayor, Kagan. Who's the other liberal justice? I can't think of.
I hope they haven't been mentioning what's his name? Roberts as the third.
No. Oh God.
If that's the case, we're screwed.
No. There's a third one. I just can't think of his name.
I'm looking him up right now. We got.
Oh yeah, Breyer, Stephen Breyer.
Right. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if that were to happen, I would hope that the 3. I would hope it'd be bipartisan, right? All right. If Donald Trump really wins it, then all right, give it to Donald Trump because he really won it, right? If he really won it. But I'm hoping and I'm praying to God that all these early voting shows that it's not going to be contested, that it's going to be clear, but there's probably going to be enough voter suppression to keep it from going to that will make it go to the courts.
But the thing is, you have to ask yourself, what is it that they take into the courts, right? So it will be a question of.
It'll be one state, I think.
What are they taking to the courts? Are they saying, like, are the Republicans saying that, hey, these ballots that came in on election day or came in after election day but were postmarked before election day should not be counted?
That they're gonna try to do that. The one, even though it's called early freaking voting, if someone happens to die, that's not the fault of their own. They still early voted, right? Because there's recently going on, and I believe it's in Wisconsin, where a young lady who was 20, which by the way, that probably means this is her first presidential election and only presidential election. She voted sometime in June or July. She passed away in September. She was a big political fan. She was enthralled by politics. They're throwing that one out. I don't know if they're contesting that, but this is the similar kind of things that they're going to try to throw out, right? That they're going to try to do that, throw that out. They're probably going to contest the votes in a lot of swing states to kind of get it towards. There's going to be something fishy unless it's clear that the actual, like they're like, there's no possible way we can contest this.
Yeah.
Right. That's the only thing I see. I don't know. I honestly have the opinion that Donald Trump never intended to become the president. I honestly feel like he ran for president. He thought he was going to fail anyways, but he was doing it to make his brand go up. That him just winning the presidency just happened to be, happenstance, and he got really lucky. I am honestly of that opinion because remember, I don't know if I haven't seen it, but my friend did advise me of it. The Fahrenheit 9/11 sequel, I think it's called Fahrenheit 11/9, where he talked about the reason why Donald Trump decided to do a, what is it when you do the exploratory campaign? Is it exploratory campaign?
Exploratory committee.
Committee, thank you. Where he did the exploratory committee for him running for presidency after Gwen Stefani was making more money than him by NBC. Gwen Stefani was the highest paid voice coach, yeah. And so Donald Trump was like, I want this much money. He was like, they were like, no. And then he was like, well, you know what? I'm going to run for president. And he literally ran for president. He got lucky because of the fact there was like, 19 Republicans. So he was the biggest name. He had all this free press from the press. That helped, right? So I think his ego will make him contest it. But I'm not 100% certain if he will contest it if it's clear.
Yeah, but that's the problem.
That's the problem.
Right? And
clear.
One thing people don't seem to understand, right? Like why we've been talking about the U.S. Postal Service and all that's going on there. I'll try and break it down, right? So you have people that are going to vote on election day, right? And in a lot of states, what's going to happen is because those states mandate, and it's usually red states. Those states mandate that you can't count the mailed-in votes until polls close on election day, right? So what's going to happen is the people that were actually voting on election day, their votes will get counted first.
Yeah.
By every metric, it sounds like those are going to lean heavily Republican, because it's also the Republicans that don't seem to be taking this virus seriously. So they're the ones who are going to not social distance and go and vote on election day. Whereas,
so what you're saying is the polls are going to be showing Donald Trump winning, and then all of a sudden the early votes started getting counted in.
Yes,
and
exactly.
That's going to be like, how did that happen?
Exactly. So when they start counting the early votes, which are going to be heavily Democratic, then you start seeing the real picture of the Republicans versus Democrat votes. So that's why Trump has been saying that the election should be called an election night. It's inappropriate to do anything otherwise because he knows that his count on election night will be higher.
Yeah.
But who the hell says, oh, don't count these other ballots because what? You hadn't finished counting by midnight, so whatever we counted, that's what it is? No, get out of here. That's stupid. But so the reason why they slowed down the USPS is for a couple of reasons, right? One, they wanted ballots to not make it in there by election day, and then they're coming in after election day, which in a lot of states that's legal, right? They're allowed to receive ballots after election day as long as they were postmarked and sent before election day, right? But he's saying that no, we shouldn't allow those, and we're going to slow down the USPS so that these arrive late and we can say that no, we got to throw these out. It's blatant, right? It's just and then you have all these other things where they're like, okay, you have to have the ballot inside 2 envelopes. If it's inside 1, we'll throw out the envelope, and then these votes don't count. But then they won't tell you on TV or whatever. They'll have it in like these little postmark things that you just throw away without realizing, and then you have a lot of people who aren't paying attention to this sending ballots in a single envelope, and their votes don't count. And where does that affect most?
This
It's
is why
affecting
I
minority
honestly
communities.
advocate people. I tell them early vote, but I don't mail-in vote. I've never have,
Yeah.
and I don't think I ever will. But yeah, I don't. Just because of the fact is, it depends on, obviously with Barack Obama, I don't suspect that this would have happened. It would have probably happened in Republican states, but not nationally the way they're trying to do it now, right? So yeah, so I'm hopeful that what it really means is, by the way, I just got another text from somebody telling me to vote. It's true what they say. Look,
I
if you're
got two
single,
today.
if you're single and they're not harassing you like the Biden campaign is to vote, they're not feeling you. So so anyway, but yeah, I just I really am hopeful that you know what, it's just like Donald Trump is doing all this because he's hoping to win, but if he doesn't win, bro, you're richer than you were before you already got rich off the government, right?
Yeah.
That needs to be investigated, obviously, but in the meantime, he's rich. He's going to be able to get. Anyways, look, this is one thing. If Donald Trump gets arrested after he's still going to be living in like a freaking ranch house for, like, you know what I mean, like a 10-acre ranch house with an Olympic-sized pool. So
I'm less worried, to be honest, as we're now 3 days away from the election. I'm less worried about Trump himself and more worried about his supporters.
Yeah.
We know
you think
that
militias are really going to do what they claim they're going to do?
they're going to try. The Trump supporters that we know aren't like that. At least I don't think so. But we know that there's enough of them out there that are batshit crazy, and they have all the guns, and they might just be like, "Oh, I see a Biden sign. Let me go shoot up that house."
Do you know what the highest? However, do you know what So there is a bullet shortage. That is scary, but the highest percentage of new gun owners are Black. And I think
strap up.
Yeah, pretty much. And then, so look, I pray to God that we don't become that. Yeah. I really do. I really hope that we don't become that. But it's something that's becoming heavily dangerous, right? It's something that's There's a great episode of, so that was another, I was trying to think of, in the top 5, remember how I talked about This Is Us recorded, and then we talked about the pandemic, and then I was like, I swear there was another show, Blackish. I don't know if you saw this first episode of Blackish for this season.
I didn't.
If you have Hulu, go watch it. You have Hulu?
I do have Hulu. I have all the streaming services except for Apple.
Just watch the first season, I don't know if you're a fan of Blackish, but watch the first episode of this season's Blackish. It talks about voting, and you know how they're really good at making a point. Mm-hmm. They talk about the timeline of the different types of voter suppression. The Constitution, and I asked this question on Twitter because all my followers never fucking answer anyways. I'm going to ask you, do you think the U.S. is one of the only governments that created their Constitution with protecting elites and keeping slavery in mind?
Protecting elites and keeping slavery in mind.
Reason I asked that question is the Constitution was framed by the small elites who were landowners and rich and white, right? Almost all of them had slaves. The only ones that I know for sure, Hamilton didn't have. Hamilton and Aaron Burr both didn't have slaves. Only reason I know that is because obviously we're both obsessed with Hamilton. But are they the only? Because even Thomas Jefferson, I read it somewhere, and I might be wrong, but I read it somewhere where he actually initially wanted to talk about slavery in the Constitution, and about kind of they kind of sounded like not freeing them, but kind of giving them a little bit of
human rights.
Human rights, yeah.
So,
and then of course he was struck down and told not to, which is funny because he ended up being one of the worst slave owners out of all the fucking fathers, right?
So, I have a bit of a problem with the framing of that question because I don't believe.
Which Chris do you want to get rid of, sir?
Yeah. So
which founding father do you want to get rid of?
I don't believe that the Constitution explicitly.
Okay. Let me explain. Let me word it better. Do you think there's other countries that while the institution of slavery was rampant, right? And and the and it was being framed by people who benefited from that and benefited from themselves being rich. Because do you think there's other countries that were kind of written that same way, where it was, we're not going to explicitly say that we're going to be protecting ourselves, but we are, because obviously we're only going to give the rights to vote to, of what was it, 1% or 10% of the population of the United States at the time got to vote, because it had to be landowners. They had to be landowners and men.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So no. So here's what I'm gonna say. I don't believe that, one, the Constitution explicitly lays out that, you know, anything about slavery, right? About, you know, whether you should be able to own slaves or anything like that. I think it's more of a neglect rather than an overt, you know, thing of like, hey, this is slavery, it's good, yada yada yada.
Yeah.
That being said, to your question of, is America the only is the US the only country to frame their founding documents around preservation of the status of the elites and like the and keeping down the indentured servants? No.
Okay.
Because I think all founding documents, all, you know, whatever, you know, all of those are written by the victors. All of those are written by the people in power. They even parts of the Bible that are written where they're like, slaves, respect your masters and all that stuff. Because at the time, the people that were writing the Bibles were people that were in a position to own slaves, right? You had to be learned to be able to write, right? So of course, from their perspective, they're going to be like, well, obviously I want slaves to respect me. I'm not going to write something that my slave is going to read and be like, oh, they want me to revolt. Yeah. So it just so happens that in the time of America's founding, that was the reality of it. It was like the people who are, it wasn't like the French Revolution where it's like really the people, the serfs, the poor people that are like dictating what's going to happen now. The American Revolution, even though they were fighting back against the monarch, these are still upper
the
class
elites
men.
were the ones running everything, and it was the poor people who were actually doing the fighting.
Exactly. They were still
Same
upper
thing with
class
the Civil
men.
War. Same thing with the Civil War. The Civil War was being fought by the poor and the servants and slaves too, for the benefit of those landowners / slave owners, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right.
And the reason that can't happen today, right, is because knowledge is power. And when you give people power, people that are not in that, you know, elite, when you let them understand that, oh, it doesn't have to be this way, then you can no longer put them under your foot, because they will always outnumber you.
And do you think that might be why certain progressive politicians are starting to get elected more and more? Because remember, we talked about the squad added another member, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that's probably what's helping? Is just the fact that people are knowledgeable of like, yo, look, the Democratic Party isn't reaching out for my benefit, but I'm still going to vote for them. But I'm going to vote for this person who's specifically Democratic politician, but progressive views.
I was talking to my friend about it. The country, not even just the Democratic Party, the country is moving gradually to the left with every election cycle. And I know it's not moving as far to the left as you might like. But no,
I wouldn't say
it's moving.
It's not as far. It's not as far to me. It's not that.
As quickly.
Maybe. As quickly, and also it's the problem is our left, like what a lot of people consider far left here, is centrist in a lot of other countries.
Right.
Well, so we're really behind the needle is really what it is.
Yeah, we're also a 200-year-old country, which isn't that long. I think the country is veering in that direction. It's taken time, but I think with the emergence of social media, with the ability of people to travel and to see what life is like in these so-called socialist countries, you know, I think people are realizing, we don't have it like we should back home. Yeah, and so voters are now voting
Because that's what I was
with
going to
that
say.
in mind.
The reason why this question popped into my head right now when I was talking to you is because the fact of the matter. So a lot of people from different countries are like, they're shocked as hell at how hard it is for us to vote, and that's the reason I mentioned the
Yes.
Blackish episode, was because it talks about it talks about how the Constitution was created for only elite white men, landowners, to be able to vote. Then then you had to do this women's suffrage. Then you had to do the civil rights. And even after the civil rights movement, or not after the civil rights, after the freedom, right? There was still the whole literacy test that had to be done, right?
Yes.
Stuff like that.
Or,
So
or
it's just like,
counting the number of marbles in a
and
freaking
guess what's
jar or
being
something.
added? Guess what's being added to that long list? Slowing down the mail, throwing out early voting. What's it called when you purging voters from
Mhm.
from the
From the
voters list, right?
rolls.
Which thank God didn't happen to me, but I had to keep looking to make sure it didn't, right?
So I literally have my voter page on right now. You probably can't see that well, but I literally went there just now as we were talking, just to check if my vote is still listed as accepted. It is.
Okay.
But this conversation is making me anxious about that. Like I'm gonna keep checking every day till election day, because if at one point it says it's not accepted, I'm gonna be there on election day and I'm like, I'm gonna vote.
So what I'm thinking is, just from the conversation that we had right now, is what's going on now is, yeah, we are moving we're moving further left. What you have now is those that refuse to let go of it. They're fighting it with they feel like they have their backs to the wall, and so they're trying to scratch at everything. And that's really what Donald Trump is the epitome of. Because one thing that he always tried to do is, remember what I told you, the reason why I think he won against Hillary was because he was considered apolitical. He was considered not part of the
Political
establishment,
class. Yeah.
even though he benefits so, because he is establishment. This is the epitome of this establishment fighting the fact that people are starting to say, you guys are full of shit. We can get more out of you. So we're hoping that's what it is. Keep looking at your voter registration, like Zino said, and just look. I believe Georgia has an exception rule for voting. I'm not. I would research that if they have an exception law where you can keep voting. There's a lot of states that have that, where your company, your job has to give you time to go vote. So try to vote if you can. Keep looking. There's a lot of people who are cynical who think voting doesn't do anything, but you know what? That's the only voice we really have right now. So just try to do it. Right.
That in itself is a form of voter suppression. When they make people think that their vote doesn't matter,
Yeah.
and they spread it a lot in Black community. There's a lot of Facebook bots that will go on like Black pages, like hip hop pages and all that stuff, and say that, oh, your vote doesn't matter, like it's decided by so and so anyway.
Hey, look, if you're a Black man living in Rhode Island, your vote counts twice as much as mine and Zeno's, though. So, at the Electoral College, just keep that in mind.
Sure does.
All right.
All right. So we talked about that. That was actually about the Supreme Court and how they're trying to, yeah.
And look, we're gonna have more conversations about the Supreme Court, just because Roe v. Wade is going to be one of the big things that they talk about too, right? And that's going to be a heavy. First of all, I am of the opinion what Dave Chappelle said. If you're a dude, unless you're trying to protect women's rights to choose, fall back.
Yeah.
Because this isn't our fight. And then it sucks. Obviously, now they have a woman on. Like somebody said,
she's gonna put the rubber stamp on it, and they'll be like, "Oh, but a woman was the one who did it."
But we'll talk more about that, because I think that's going to be a conversation that we're going to have in the next episode after this election. We'll see what happens, what the outcome is, and all that stuff. In the meantime, this is just something that we got to think about, right? So we'll see what happens on Tuesday. Real quickly, Tuesday we're voting, right? That's the big thing. November 4th, we're voting. No, that's November 3rd, right?
November 3rd, yes.
November 3rd, we're voting. What happens when you go up to the votes, right? You think about debates. What's been happening, Zeno, that you could tell us about these current debates?
Yeah, that was a fantastic segue, by the way. Except there was something I wanted to add before we got into debates.
Oh, damn it, you ruined my segue, sir.
Well, sorry, you should have asked. One thing I want to add is, if you haven't voted and you have a mail-in ballot, do not mail it in. Go and vote on Tuesday.
Yeah.
It's way too late now to.
And if you're in line, they have to let you vote.
Yeah. Do not mail in. Do not rely on the postmark. Screw all that. Just go and vote.
Take a book.
Take a book, yes, or your favorite album.